Thank you for tuning into this video about police strategy or types of policing. And in this video, we're going to talk about the three main types of policing, and we're also going to talk about detective work as a part of the police department. Now, types of policing, what I mean is like if you're a police chief for a police department, you might take on different strategies or philosophies when you're running that police department. And those philosophies can push your whole department into doing very different things. You might also be valuing different things as being important when you're running that police department. And I'm not saying that every police department follows one of these programs. There certainly is a combination at different levels of these different types of policing. So, for example, our first type of policing is what's called the professional model of policing. And the professional model of policing is focusing in on separating police department from politics, focuses on less social functions, so less interacting with the public, and more straight up enforcing the laws and making sure that everyone is safe. So they spend a lot more time on crime control. And this kind of fits that professional idea. They're focused on crime control. They're trying to stop that. And this tends to happen more often in bigger cities where they may have an issue with crime control. There might be pressure from the outside world to stop that crime, and they tend to focus in on that and less on building bonds with the people. And that's where our second type of policing is going to go into is building of bonds. Now, in professional realm, in the professional model of policing, we tend to see a lot of limits placed on discretion. Discretion being, um, you know, police officers' decision making and choice. So, for example, they may have a requirement that if they pull you over for speeding, they have to give you a ticket. In fact, that happens a lot. A police officer pulls you over, maybe you have a very valid reason for speeding, and they feel bad, but they have to give you a ticket. So don't feel upset that you didn't get a warning for your speeding ticket because the police officer might be under a requirement from um, their leadership, from their administration, that they have to give a ticket. They may have to arrest someone if they're called in for a domestic disturbance. They may have to bring this person in for a medical check. So there's less choice in professional model policing. They may have to give tickets and have to arrest someone. That doesn't necessarily mean that those people are going to be charged with something. That doesn't necessarily mean that the courts are going to rule in their favor, but they have, these requirements that they have less choice. Now, oftentimes, the professional model is going to focus in on things like rapid response to calls. So making sure that they're, getting to the scene of the crime or getting to the scene of the incident as fast as possible. And they may compare how fast you're responding to decide if you're doing a really good job or not. Another thing that this type of policing focuses on is preventative patrol. So being out there patrolling the streets, having police cars around, so you're preventing crime from happening, and so you're able to immediately get out there too and respond to calls. Some police departments have all the police officers in their station, and then when there's a call, they send them out. Professional patrol would probably focus on being out there so they can readily respond as fast as possible. Now, the second type of policing is what's called community policing. And as you can guess, this is all about building bonds with the community. This philosophy believes that having a strong connection with the community makes them more likely to help the police, not only with their own investigations, but to be more willing to call the police when something's going on. There's oftentimes people are involved with a crime and they just don't contact the police. They may not feel comfortable that the police are going to help them or that the police are going to be efficient in responding. And in community policing, they're focusing on building a bond with the people, making sure that they know that um, the police officers are there for them. In our community, we have a lot of community policing. There's police officers that are always out there interacting with the public. Heck, they're coming into class um, at our high school and interacting with you. They are presenting different lines of work in this class. They're allowing you to go along with ride-alongs to see what their line of work is like. And of course, we have an officer in the building. And that officer is out there interacting with students to build that connection, to build up that community policing aspect. But in different communities, you can see police officers out on foot, out biking, on horses, All of that can be done to interact with the people. I remember when I was a kid, there were police officers that would always go around and hand out baseball cards, like Brewers baseball cards, and that was a cool thing. And it was a way for the police officers to, you know, connect with the people. A few years ago, took my kid trick or treating, and the police officers were out there on the streets handing out glow sticks. It's all about building a bond and a relationship with the people, so there's a level of trust. And it allows for more discretion in this type of policing because you may want to build a relationship with other people. So, for example, a police officer pulls you over, they may give you a warning in this community policing realm because they want you to trust the police officers and not get angry with the police officers. You do see a lot more foot patrols, you do see a lot more working with Neighborhood Watch, looking at specific problems in communities. You see a lot more of that um, helpful role we talked about earlier in the other video. Now, the last type of policing that we're going to talk about is a more modern look at policing called problem-solving policing. And it's looking at data. It's a very data-driven policing where you're trying to be proactive, where you map out where there are hot spots in town or areas of really high crime activity. And you map it out and you look at those hot spots. You can see the maps on the right here. And you put police officers in those hot spots at the times when crimes typically happen. So if you recall back when we watched Minority Report, we probably watched a video about this exact thing, trying to be very preventative, trying to put police officers where crimes happen at the time when crimes typically happen. And that is to prevent crime from happening. Not necessarily to just catch people committing the crime, but you're less likely to commit a crime if there's police officers already there. The last type of policing isn't really one of our three types of policing, but it's an element that goes between all of them. And it really talks about a different type of strategy with policing. Over the years, we've seen the formation of detective bureaus inside police departments. And detective bureaus, their whole job is to try and investigate crimes. So they're trying to investigate and solve crimes that are not yet solved. Patrol officers are out there patrolling the streets and pulling people over speeding, whereas detectives are trying to solve things like burglaries and robberies and murders, trying to solve things like um, a missing person. A lot of their time ends up being tracking down stolen property, though, because a lot of the crimes that are going to happen that aren't solved right away are thefts. So a lot of times when you're trying to find something, retrieve something, the detectives are trying to do that. So, for example, they may have a bunch of stolen cars and a bunch of stolen bikes that they've recovered, and they're trying to solve those crimes. Very common to see that go on. Detectives also try and prep this stuff for court. So once they figure out who committed a crime, they're trying to put together the pieces and help out the district attorney in prepping that case. They also tend to be a little more aggressive. For example, our drug detectives do a lot of undercover operations where they may have, an informant. So, for example, if you're a drug officer, and let's say you catch someone that's buying drugs, and you could charge them with a crime, or you could tell them, hey, I'll let you go back out there and you can be free, but you're going to have to give me information about who you're buying drugs from. Or you're going to have to let me follow you when you buy this drug. Or you're going to have to, wear a wire when you buy this drug next time. I want to get information on your buyer and maybe your buyer's buyer, or not your buyer, but the person that's selling, your seller's seller, and so on and so on. So a lot of times the drug detectives are trying to find the highest person in the drug supply chain, and they may have to have informants out there. They may have to go undercover and purchase drugs pretending to be someone else. So there's all these different things that could be done in a drug investigation that's undercover. You see it a lot with trying to find missing persons, trying to find human traffickers. There might have to be undercover operations to get inside that operation. And that's all we're going to talk for now in this video. We've talked about the three types of policing strategies. We've talked about detective work as something that's kind of integral to all policing strategies. And certainly these will be in the quizzes, they'll be on the test. They're important to know.